see the private chat? See the right side of the screen. Okay.
Begins. Vijay, please.
Okay. Hello. Good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you for joining us today. I think what I wanted to do was share a little bit about hello? One second. I think we have to put this. Okay. Let me start it again. Good afternoon, colleagues, guests. Welcome to this conversation. I think what I wanted to do was start this roundtable seminar with just a very brief introduction about ICEFIL. And then I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Carlotta, who's going to share a bit more about the new developments of making this available on mobile learning. And then I think we're going to have a lot of contribution from our other ICEFIL colleagues, and I will share more on that a bit later. But I think for me, I'd like to say education is for many hope. But I think we also have a challenge that to give hope, we need more teachers. But unfortunately, if we are to meet our the UNESCO goals for basic education rights, the world needs some 70 million new teachers between now and 2030. So clearly we have a challenge. And on top of that, we have a growing digital and physical exclusion, which I find very disturbing. I think more and more what I'm appreciating is that we have more children falling off the grid than it seems that children are getting on the education grid. And I think my colleague, Dr. Salzman, maybe will add some more details to this. But in any case, we felt that technology can and must play a role, and technology must play a constructive role to teachers. And this can only happen if technology is used with modern pedagogy and didactics. So in 2016, we started ICEFIL with many of the ICEFIL colleagues who will also be sharing this afternoon. And we felt that we had two objectives. One is that we needed to use innovative learning to foster and train teachers. And the second one was to really make it scalable. And I think, we, since 2016, when we used our master teacher training program in Kakuma, we have since delivered a similar program in Ethiopia, in Rwanda, in South Africa. And our hope is that this year, maybe because of the pressing needs from local colleagues we can also do Somalia and Zambia. But more on that a bit later on. I think for now, I just wanted to share a bit about how this program, which has been field tested, is now available on a mobile learning platform that my colleague will share a bit more about, and how, because of its mobility, we're able to now impact more and more teachers in any parts of the world. So having said that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Carlotta.
Action. Only by taking advantage of teachers' creativity and expanding their capacity, we can design 21st century schools that truly meet the students' and society's needs. Preparing the next generation of teachers with the best knowledge, pedagogies, and support is ultimately the most powerful way to enable student learning and contribute to transforming education. To ensure teachers can innovate and this can be scaled up effectively, education systems need to listen to teachers and provide them with the necessary tools. However, efforts worldwide have been insufficient, particularly in refugee settings, where teachers often receive minimal or no training at all, and many have only secondary school certificates and their own educational experiences. So it's clear that if we want to help children and youth to build a better future, there is an urgent need for new approaches to education in refugee contexts. Providing refugee teachers with meaningful training, sustained support, and strengthening a sense of professional identity are critical. A key aspect of building this capacity is developing environments that foster teacher collaboration, leadership, and decision-making as core elements of the school design while involving teachers themselves. And well, my name is Carlota Tovar. I am the director of the University Camilo José Cela Foundation, belonging to the SEK Educational Group. SEK is compounded by 10 international schools, 1 university and 2 foundations, and it has more than 125 years of tradition in innovation and social commitment. And in particular, UCJC Foundation's mission is fostering education in vulnerable contexts. 3 years ago, we launched a new initiative, Each Teach, a digital platform for teacher training that we will share with you later. The project began in Kakuma refugee camp, Kenya, where we met ICEFIL, International Center of Excellence for Innovative Learning. ICEFIL is an international consortium of leading universities and other institutions dedicated to advancing the use and impact of innovative learning. learning. And it has been a long experience in teacher training in vulnerable contexts. And since then, since we met in Kakuma, we have been collaborating on promoting teacher training in this context. And well, today we will discuss how the need of not replacing existing educational efforts, but partnering with them to complement and use technology to enhance and expand what is already in place, fostering a whole student paradigm. So Vijay, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Carlota. I think the first ICEFIL colleague I'd like to invite is Dr. Marangu, who is director of Windle International. And I think I have always found his leadership and wisdom in terms of bringing education to refugees very, very inspiring. So having said that, maybe I can hand over now to Dr. Marangu.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Vijay. I wish to thank you for this invitation, and I'll briefly talk about the education of the refugees that Window actually has been supporting, and the challenges that we actually all of us face. The challenges in East Africa and the educational interventions in East Africa. And if time allows, we will talk a little bit about the modern technology and the innovative learning in education. Window, the vision for Window is actually to vulnerable communities where we operate in East Africa. And our mission is, Window's mission is to challenge poverty and inequality to bring about a lasting and transformation to society. And we operate in several countries in Eastern Africa, operate in Kenya, we operate in Uganda, Sudan, South Sudan, and Somalia, providing educational interventions at different levels. We now look at the challenges that we face at the Window level. This education, these challenges affect access, quality, and inclusivity, and the quality and education opportunities of students in refugee camps and the settlements in Kenya and Uganda are severely impacted by the combination of lack of educational resources, teachers, and classroom space. As regards the teachers, we see that the teacher-pupil ratio is 1 to 58 students in Kenya, and 1 teacher to 84 in Uganda. And as far as classrooms are concerned, in Kenya, we have at least 120 students share 1 classroom, whereas in Uganda, we have about 1 classroom shared by 160 students. And this looks just like a meeting place than a classroom. The gender equity, on average, girls make up to only 30% of enrollment in both primary and secondary schools in the areas in the countries we operate. And the other challenge we have is learning resources, exercise books and textbooks, supplementary teaching materials, properly equipped science laboratories are all lacking or inadequate, and often students only learn actually the theory as opposed to actually a practical. Then we have another peculiar challenge in the COVID area. The COVID-19 has actually accelerated the use of technology as an important medium of education delivery. This has widened the education gap to refugees and the communities affected by conflict. There are about 5 new technological educational gaps. And we have the digital gap. And for this, we propose to facilitate access to technology, infrastructure, both hardware and the software. A connectivity gap, enabling we want to see how we can provide high-speed connectivity to access learning from digital platforms. And the pedagogical gap, we realize that teacher skills and knowledge on the use of technology to deliver education continues to be an impediment to actually quality education and, of course, access to education. And we have the learner's gap. Students' knowledge also and the skills to use educational technology still need to be improved if they have to benefit from the technology. And the power gap, which is really quite big. All these technological equipment require power, and therefore we are trying to see how we can provide power either through the national grid where it is, and possibly a solar to be actually more innovative. And we have areas of intervention, the countries of intervention, where Window actually provides programs. And we have all the Kenya, the Uganda, the Sudan, and the South Sudan, and Somalia. And we have marked the areas where we have university education scholarship, secondary education, the countries where we offer that, primary education, we have indicated, agricultural education, vocational education, teacher education, and English language training. When we move on, we see a summary. I would like to actually provide a summary of high-level Window interventions. Window has developed innovative interventions to address the challenges to provision of quality education to refugees and vulnerable communities. When we look at the gap of highly congested classrooms, what we have done is providing like 2 classrooms in one. And this means that what we've done is we have picked our own day and see what is actually covered by a curriculum in the own day, and trying to squeeze the timetable such that in one single day, we could have actually students, 1 full school in the morning and 1 full school in the afternoon with the proper coverage of the lessons. And then we have the expansion of classrooms where funding is able to allow us to do that. And we are also trying to increase the number of the teachers. And the classrooms without walls, this is where we are using the e-learning, that one teacher can actually reach out to several, to thousands of students in different locations. And this is very important, the use of technology, because it also helps to standardize the delivery of education. And we have the lack of adequately trained teachers. And this, what we've done this is we are trying to provide blended training where we have on-site and online training combined. And quite the examples we have here is like the quality, what I say, the QC there is quality secondary education in the majors's, and the moderate high education for the refugees, both one in Kakuma and the other one in Dadaab, which we have seen have been very successful. And then we have continued to offer a pre-service training and mentorship to the teachers, and also language training, because some of the students that the schools that we have in all these countries are actually taught in English, that English is the medium of instruction. But most of the teachers from various countries actually do not use English as their first or second language. So if they come to the camps, they need to be trained in English language so that they can now acquire a language that they use to actually instruct students. and then limited access to appropriate learning and teaching materials. We have continued to lobby for funding to provide physical learning and teaching materials, and the provision of also digital and e-learning and teaching materials. And barriers to girls' education, there's a big issue that that you've seen that we need some really very innovative intervention, and we have 11-year training where we provide students with extra training during the weekend and during the holidays. And we have also coupled this with counseling, because some of our girls have certain challenges, therefore they need to be supported by counselors. And we have also tried to address specific issues that affect girls themselves, like lack of sanitary wear, lack of uniform, so that at least then they are able to come and attend the schools. And we will look quickly at the intervention on teacher education, which is very critical. And we have two approaches: the embedded approach that I briefly mentioned, and the on-the-job training. And the embedded approach, which is the online and on-site. Here we have two examples to give on this. We have the quality secondary education in the manager's the QC, and this was done on-site, and that the lecturers from the universities came to provide face-to-face training, and when they were not there, they provided learning online. And these institutions ended up providing certified and recognized certification to the teachers. And we in this particular training, we actually partnered with the Utrecht University and the Kenyatta University. Then the other one, which also Window has very successfully carried, is the Borderless Higher Education for the Refugees, which is gone there. And again, it has used the same model of blended approach, online and on-site. And it has been used by 4 universities: the York University and the UBC, the University of British Columbia from Canada, and the Kenyatta University, and more universities from Kenya. And these have provided certificate and diploma, undergraduate and postgraduate training for students in the refugee camps. And one thing which is very critical about this, the 2 trainings, is that all of them have led to recognize certification. And if students start a certificate, then there is a progression that they will continue to the diploma, they will continue to the undergraduate, and they will continue to the postgraduate. So it allows them, even after leaving the camps, to actually continue with their education. And briefly, I think I need to stop here because of time, but briefly, on the job training, we have found it very useful, because as you have seen in my discussion before, that we have limited number of teachers. We have few teachers teaching very many students. And therefore, if during training, we have to take if we take the students out of the classroom and then take them to the colleges for training, it means that we deprive the students, the teachers, who are actually very few. So we have found it good and very, very relevant and very also beneficial to actually train the teachers in the places where they are. And that's why we are talking about, we don't pull them out of the classrooms. All the training are done during the holidays, so that then the teachers are able to teach during the the learning session. And most of the times during the learning session, some lecturers from these universities I've mentioned come to the schools to see how the students actually are teaching. So this is a very important. The OJT is very, very critical in terms of providing ensuring that students get the teachers, they are not deprived of the teachers. And then the teachers themselves, when the lecturers come, they improve on a daily basis. Wherever they are taught, then the next time they go to the classrooms, they're able to improve. And we find those two, the blended and the on the job training, very critical, particularly in the areas that we operate. And I think I'll end there and say thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to discuss about a few of our interventions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marangu. I think now want to invite the next colleague, who is the director of the IGAD Secretariat, Dr. Kibedi, because I think many of the challenges you had mentioned, Dr. Marangu, are also evident in the 8 countries that are part of the IGAD Secretariat. So with this, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Kibedi, director of the IGAD Secretariat.
Thank you, Prof. PJ. Thank you, Dr. Marangu. Glad to hear you after a long time because of COVID, and I'm happy to share with you in the brief time slots that I have on what we do at the regional level to promote education, science, technology, and innovation, and also to focus a little bit on the theme of this session, the teacher training, the role of teacher training, and how we do it in the region. I think our experience and then the experiences of all others could contribute to our approach for a positive teacher training program in the region, and that contributes to the quality of education. So just briefly, I'd like to say that IGAD is an intergovernmental organization, as you know it. We serve 8 countries, practically 7, because of Eritrea's suspension for some time. We have Djibouti, Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, and Uganda. And I think some of the countries that Dr. Marangu has mentioned are our member countries, and we work in those countries also. And our education program is holistic. We have programs for all levels of education, from pre-primary to tertiary education. Our regional education policy framework outlines policy priority intervention areas as follows: pre-primary education and early childhood development. Priority area 2, primary and secondary education. Priority area 3, tertiary and higher education. 4, science, technology, innovation, and technology generation, as well as knowledge management. And 5, technical vocational education, training, and skills development for post-secondary as an alternative path, as well as for tertiary education. And then the 6 key priority intervention area is teacher development and lifelong learning. And then we have the 7th priority, education for refugees, returnees, and IDPs. And then 8th priority policy intervention area is gender and education. So you can see all the issues that Dr. Marangu from the window of Windle International has touched upon are the key policy and intervention priorities for IGAD. And our mandate emanates from what we call the Djibouti Declaration. The Djibouti Declaration was adopted in 2017 by the IGAD ministers in charge of education, and it has 5 key priority areas. I just want to briefly mention these 5 key priority areas so that all what we do revolves around the core common areas of concern for all of us. These include regional education quality standards with a focus on people with special needs, refugees, returnees, and host communities. It also articulates the need for programs and interventions on regional skills development for refugees and host communities. And the Djibouti Declaration also emphasizes on inclusion of refugees into national education systems. And then it articulates also the need for harmonizing policies and programs or approach toward this accreditation, certification, and recognition of prior learning. And then the 5th priority area is partnership, cooperation, and financing. And this is actually very important as it talks about multi-year predictable funding based on costed national response plans in the context of responsibility and burden sharing. And all this we have been implementing since the adoption of the policy framework and the Djibouti Declaration. The 2 key tools that I have talked about, the IGAD Regional Education Policy Framework, which emanated from the Djibouti Declaration, and also the Djibouti Declaration key priority areas are the most important areas of regional and interstate cooperation and collaboration. So we are implementing one by one all the components, and then we are developing programs in the different thematic areas. I just want to highlight a few of the recent developments that we have been making. One in the regional qualifications framework, we have developed the roadmap for the IGAD regional qualifications framework in collaboration with UNESCO and the Education Council Authority, ECW, as well as the government of Germany through GID. And then that is at an advanced stage. We are now finalizing the draft qualifications framework for all labels, for all descriptors, and then we use that equally for recognition of prior learning. So I think this was one of the challenges that we have faced, especially when it comes to education for refugees and displaced populations. And that mandate was given to IGAD to respond to, and we're working on that. And next week, we have a regional workshop on presenting the various dimensions of the regional qualifications framework in Kenya. And then we'll receive feedback from member states, from partners, and from various stakeholders. And once we have that, I will continue improving the draft. And then, God willing, by end of the year, we plan to submit it to our ministers for final endorsement. The other important progress that we have made in the implementation of our policies is teacher training. And I'm pretty sure both Dr. Marango and Professor BJ were very much involved and also are very much aware as we have been exchanging ideas and also seeking for areas of cooperation and collaboration for the teacher training and development, especially taking into consideration the 21st century techniques and technology that Professor BJ is very much passionate about. We had started the teacher training in 3 countries, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Uganda. In February 2021. Originally, we planned for 1 round of pilot training in these countries, and then looking back and reflecting on what goes right, what goes wrong, and then continue with scaling up of the training. But we had resources enough to increase the experience. So we are conducting 3 rounds of the pilot phase in each country by training 100, 100, and then 50 for the third round. Where on the second round, I think we will be finishing this in June. Students teachers will graduate with certificate, and the training modules include pedagogy, psychosocial skills, and then life skills, as well as ICT. And these are found to be very, very much attractive for a wide range of teachers that have not been exposed to training, especially in the refugee settlement areas, teaching both students from the refugee communities and also from the host communities. So there is a lot of excitement about the impact, and we will wind up by the end of the year the first pilot phase. But before that, we have 8 and 9 June regional knowledge sharing and lessons learned workshop in Djibouti, or could be in Addis or also. But we are bringing teachers that have been involved in the teacher training, that have participated in the program, trainers that have conducted the training in the 4 modules, and also school principals, as well as officials from ministries of education from these 3 countries, plus officials from the other countries that have not been covered by the training. And this would, we believe, help us learn the lessons from what has been done, and then I think help us shape the program in a better way, so that we can develop a regional program that can be easily introduced to all the countries that have not been incorporated into the first round of the program. So these 2 developments are very important. I would believe that we have also a scholarship program launched in December 2021. We are seeking for universities to admit students, and then we have already selected the first round of applicants. We will be placing between July and September this first batch of IGAD scholarship holders in some of the universities in the region. So far, we had 1 major university in Khartoum, International University of Africa, which gave us a lot of scholarships, but we need to find some compensatory costs. And then the Kampala International University, and we are approaching also Addis Ababa University and other universities in the region to primarily send students from the region, from the country, into the universities within the country, rather than transporting refugees between countries. And I believe this will work, and this is perhaps where we can join hands in terms of consolidating partnership, and then sharing experiences and learning from each other, and doing the job of educating all people in general, and also, more importantly, refugees, returnees, and host communities in particular, especially those affected by past and ongoing conflicts in the region. We use education as a regional integration tool, as a mechanism for interstate cooperation that is very productive. We have been really bringing people from different backgrounds together to share experiences, to learn from each other, and then develop common projects and programs, have the same vision, like the collective response to multiple challenges. And then I think that's very important. So I would like to stop here and maybe respond to questions if there are any that are related to my presentation. I don't want to talk much more than the 8-10 minutes that were allocated to me. Back to you, Madam Moderator, or Mr. Moderator. Prof. Vijay, you have the floor. Thank you. Dr. Vijay, I cannot hear you. I think there must be some problem, maybe.
Yes, can you listen? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, now, yes.
Okay. I was saying, Dr. Kibedi, thank you very much for this interesting presentation and for giving us this precise picture about the situation of the ICAT. And later, after these presentations, we will have the opportunity of continuing this conversation with new questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luna.
Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Jihed Ibrahim, Chief Strategy Officer at World Refugees School. Through his professional career, he has strived to utilize his ICT knowledge and experience in the field of education. This effort has resulted in co-founding 2 successful e-learning companies, as well as planning and delivering educational solutions in a number of locations worldwide. His working experience covers both pedagogical and technological aspects of education and includes both systems, development and country-wide formal educational assistance, design and development. Please, Mr. Jihed, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction. And I'll get straight to the point. In this presentation, I'll be talking about WRS briefly, okay, and then address some pedagogical aspects that I believe constitute a very good entrance to the subject or the main topic of this webinar. WRS is a US-based NGO. It's 501c3 NGO, and its vision is simply to help in providing formal, accredited education to refugees worldwide. Our flagship project was in the province of Idlib in North Syria. We've done a lot of work in other countries, including Zimbabwe and Zambia. And according to our plans, Africa is our next stop. Now, as I said, I just want to emphasize what I see as the priorities and what we need to work on in terms of providing education, and how does that influence teachers' education programs. To start with, pedagogy is the core of what we all do, okay? And we always thought that we need to catch up with the latest trends and build our solution around that. Now, as you probably know as educators, that the focus now is heavily going towards the personalization of the learning process, the personalization of the whole education process. Turns out that, every individual learns in a different way than others. There are a lot of research to support that. And of course, in our daily work with refugees and others, actually, we've noticed the limitation of conventional ways of delivering education because of the gaps between individuals. The gaps could be related to previous educational gaps. It could be related to the way the education or the way lessons are presented, etc., etc. Okay, so one of our priorities was to find solution to make education more adaptive. That is more related to the individual's capabilities, and therefore be able to provide individualized tracks for students worldwide. That's extremely difficult in conventional teaching environments, but in technology-based delivery platform, it's not quite as difficult. Okay, so one main aspect of our solution is providing an adaptive system. And I'll explain that in a couple of minutes, or less than 1 minute. An adaptive system is a system whereby you dynamically, or the system dynamically, evaluates the student. And according to his performance, it will generate an individualized platform for each student. Now, the student might be missing something in the class, and this evaluation process will make sure that whatever he missed earlier is presented again in a different way, maybe, to make sure that the student does comprehend what has been presented. The other aspect of it, and this is very practical, it turns out that a lot of the gaps are created due to previous gaps. You know, let's say 5th grade math, you're providing a lesson in 5th grade students, but a lot of students missed something in the 4th grade or in the 3rd grade. So the system will actually will be able to present the students with a track that includes 3rd or 4th grade material. Okay, so the idea here is just to make sure that that all students are synchronized in a way, they're at the same level more or less, and whenever they miss something, the system will detect that and present them with the right material and tracks. Now, that is the adaptive learning approach. Okay, the issue now is that how can we actually train teachers to follow this way of teaching? Okay, and that was our challenge in IDLib. Okay, because teachers are tuned in a way to deliver the specific learning objectives or outcomes for each lesson at a time. And the second thing is that they're mostly not used to using technology tools. So from that perspective, we actually instructed the teachers and gave them the proper courses to be facilitators in addition to being teachers. Okay, so you know, the teacher's role is not necessarily limited to explaining the material. It would be expanded to guide the students through the different tracks, to tell the student how to use the system itself, and then all the resources needed will be a part of this solution or this method of delivery. Okay, to start with, it wasn't easy to add the role of a facilitator to the teacher, okay, and show him how to guide the students through the different lessons. But eventually it actually happened, and all of a sudden the student had access to worldwide resources. From his own session, he could access Khan Academy, he could access K-12 material, etc., etc. Okay, and if it weren't for the role of the teacher who could facilitate that for him, this would not have been possible. So again, as a conclusion, adaptive learning is extremely important, okay? In our own surveys, it actually raised the percentage of acquired education by students by 25%, okay? And that's a big margin, okay? So adaptive learning is important, okay? But to do it properly, teachers should be trained to support the students in this process. The use of technology is pivotal in this context, of course, because it will provide access to worldwide resources. And again, that was an issue with the teachers who are used to having a textbook and, you know, explaining what's there in the textbook. So, you know, the educational process was sort of teacher-centric, textbook-centric, okay? What we managed to do is that we turned it into a learning outcome-centric, okay, with textbooks, teachers, worldwide available educational resources are integrated together to actually and map with each other to actually deliver the proper education and achieve the required learning outcomes. So, and I just want to actually address an issue here that was mentioned before. Now, again, during this process, one of our main challenges was the scaling up, okay? We earlier dealt with a New York-based college, which is Brad College, for teachers training, and they couldn't actually scale up to satisfy our requirements. And therefore, we had to depend on our resources to develop teacher training program. We worked with City and Guilds of UK, which is again a leading academic institution and accreditation partner. We developed our own teachers training program that focuses on what I just said in terms of adaptive and facilitation of the educational process. And I believe we have succeeded in delivering this kind of education wherever we had a solution. Okay, so that's one aspect that starts with pedagogy. The other aspect, and I'll try to be fast in this, is the learning outcomes, okay, that are an integral part of each educational system. Now, we all know that, you know, learning outcomes, or what is referred to as learning standards, tend to be very rigid because they're a part of usually of a national curriculum, and that does not get usually updated quick enough while the world is moving ahead. Now, one of our observations was, you know, while reputable universities worldwide have very advanced systems and very dynamic learning standards, okay, K-12 education systems were not that fast in moving ahead. So reputable universities would expect certain skill sets from the students that the K-12 educational system cannot deliver, okay? So we worked with Columbia University, Georgetown University, and other universities, actually. And we did work with the Finnish educational organizations to have sort of extra curriculum for soft skills and skill sets generally, okay, that are required by universities and by the market actually, okay. Now again, when you do that and you start venturing into, you know, ICT skills or I don't know, presentation skills, communication skills, it's difficult to find sufficient teachers with the ability to deliver these courses. And the answer for this challenge was to work with these universities and with the Ministry of Education in Finland, actually, okay, whom gave us access to their own vocational curriculum. We needed to work with them to develop ICT-based training courses, okay, for teachers, so they can be in a position to facilitate such courses, okay. And again, this seemed to be working very well, and we expect to be able to apply this acquired knowledge in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and other places in Africa. Now, I don't, you know, there's so much to say about our experience as WRS and the issue of integrating pedagogy with technology, but I'm sure we will have other chances as we're running out of time. Thank you very much, and please, if you have any questions, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jihad, for this interesting presentation. So many information that we would love to continue yes, talking about it maybe later at the end of these presentations, because yes, you included a lot of very interesting things, this personalization, the soft skills, how to introduce them in the teacher training, but well, we will leave it for the last part of the session. And well, first of all, I would like to talk to the audience and to invite them to write in the chat any questions that they could have in relation to the last presentations, and we will deal with them at the end of the session. And right now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Salzman. He's an associate research professor in the Center for Doctoral Studies in Global Educational Leadership and director of the Center for Educational Innovation and Digital Learning at Lamar University. Dr. Salzman is co-author of an administration guide to online education and multiple other works focused on the integration of technology in education. For his dedication to advancing education, he has been appointed as an Apple Distinguished Educator, served mobile learning policy advisor to UNESCO, and on the UNESCO Task Force for Teachers, and winner of multiple awards, including Campus Technology Innovator of the Year, Blackboard Catalyst Award, and the New Media Consortium Center of Excellence Award. Please, Dr. Salzman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Kalala. I just wanted to begin my presentation building on what my colleague Jihad Ibrahim just talked about, and thinking about how we are moving from teacher-centric and textbook-centric into something that is much more digital, especially focused on the idea of teacher education, because as BJ just shared with us, you know, we have 70 million teachers that we need to move into the education sector if we're going to make the goals of SDG 4C by 2030. And so how do we do that? And how do we think about a framework, a model that allows us to be able to move that direction? So I'm gonna put that into context. First of all, let me say I'm coming to you from College Station, Texas, in the United States, where we are here in the morning at almost 10 a.m. and excited to be a part of this really amazing multi-continent. I think we're coming from 5 different continents for this presentation, so that's exciting. So when we're thinking about, if we can go on to the slide that talks about Education 1.0, that's the model of education that we know a lot. Come on to the 2 slides in. There we go. Next slide. One more, please. There we are. That's Education 1.0. That's a model that we know very well, where we have a lecture hall or some sort of a classroom in which we have a knowledge expert who stands in front of that classroom and provides a lecture. And this is a model that goes way back, maybe back as far as education. That also can be represented in a textbook-centric model. In the next slide, we'll see this is what my colleague Jihad was talking about with that textbook-centric model. And this model also goes back many, many years. What we know about Education 1.0 in the framework, the information framework, we can see on the next slide, where you're looking at information flow that is largely unidirectional. So on this slide, you see that you have either the professor as the knowledge source or the textbook as the knowledge source. Now that's a unidirectional flow of information into the students. That would be what we would call Education 1.0. Education 1.0 has some strengths. So the next slide of that shows the strengths of the model. It's very well known and proven. We've done this ourselves as students. We've done this as professors. There's not much that's unknown about this model. It's very validated. The authoritative source of the professor, who is selected because of their knowledge base and their ability to have expertise in that area. And when we go through the publishing process, we vet that individual is appropriate for the task, and the information there has been peer reviewed. Students and instructors have the proximity to each other in the classroom. We can talk directly. We have community that's built around that university campus, and the mode of delivery is largely low tech. I mean, the most advanced technology that may be in some of those lecture halls is the microphone system, and the output of that content is usually very standardized. Everyone who sits in that hall has a standardized experience. There are some weaknesses to this model, and we know those weaknesses pretty well these days. So if we look at the next slide, we're going to talk about how these weaknesses have kind of caused us to think about things that we may want to change in order to scale this up. So we know that the 1.0 requires dedicated facilities, that the scale is limited to the physical facilities, and those physical facilities can be very expensive. It requires a fixed time and location for classes. The curriculum is often one size fits all. It's not very personalized. So let's think about what Education 2.0 was. Education 2.0 has come up in the latter part, in the first part of the 21st century. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see Education 2.0 is the digitization of education. So we took those lecture halls. Now those lecture halls have lots of technology in them, or we've gone to online modes of instruction. And if we go into what that looks like in Education 2.0 as far as how information is presented, it's moved from textbooks largely into information that is presented digitally through discussion boards, learning management systems, and other ways of digital textbooks. So if you look at the information model for Education 2.0, now instead of that information flow being unidirectional, the content, whether that content is online or in the professor, flows to all of the students. But there is something else that happens, is that the information from student to student also flows. And in many cases, that flow becomes individualized and personalized. So I'm going to move on into thinking about how Education 2.0 is expanded. It is now very commonplace. Almost a third of, or over a third of the students in the United States took at least one course that was in this model. And over 85% of the faculty in the United States have taught in this model, and that was pre-pandemic. So Education 3.0. What is Education 3.0? Let's go ahead and skip on down, if we can, to that next one more. All right, Education 3.0 is something that's really new. It's the combination of neuroscience and cognitive psychology and education technology, and how all of these things come together, and they enable some things that we've never seen before. So let's follow up with the next slide there. And you're going to see that in this model, the information flows in many different ways from many different technologies. So for instance, we could become connected with the professor, we could become connected with mentors, we could become connected with people who are working in the workplace, actual teachers who are teaching in the field. But we also have the ability to connect into new things that are in that field of educational technology and neuroscience, which is artificial intelligence, to be able to deliver information that is exactly what that student needs. So if you remember when Dr. Ibrahim was talking about, that little gaps in knowledge can cause issues long term. This ability for us to be able to identify exactly what the gaps in knowledge are for that individual specific person and deliver that information that's custom tailored to them. So what are some of those, what are some of the technologies that come out of that? One is AI enhanced learning. This is something that UNESCO has come out in favor of and that UNESCO is doing a lot of work in. I know that I personally work with the UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies and Education on creating a MOOC that looks at the use of artificial intelligence in teacher training and how institutions and organizations can leverage the power of AI to help with teacher training. The next one is something that we see bringing changes into the way that we assess information. You heard my colleagues earlier talking about how we're moving to competency-based assessments, where we're not necessarily thinking about how long did the student spend in the lecture hall, how many hours of instruction did they receive, but we're looking at the actual implementation of competencies and evaluating those competencies based on knowledge, skills, and attributes that we want that individual to have. And then next is something that is sort of brand new, which is sort of being developed as we speak. It's taken off a little bit in Europe. It's starting to catch traction in North America. It's the idea of what's called negotiated work-based learning, in which we put an individual into a work environment, an authentic work environment, and we provide them with scaled on-the-job training that allows them to be able to improve their skills as they go. And when we're thinking about how we might meet the goals for SDG 4C, this becomes really important because we can get teachers in those classrooms where they're needed most and continue to build their skills up along the way and provide them with a mentoring relationship, a internship-like product that allows them to be able to move forward. So what are some of the strengths of that model? As we talked about, it allows students to enter the workplace almost immediately. Content is highly optimized for each learner, and in the sense of artificial intelligence, once that engine is created, it can scale almost infinitely. The mediated work-based learning means that mentors interact with authentic with learners in authentic situations, and it allows those learners to be able to move into the workplace immediately, in many cases earning while they're learning, which allows them to be able to afford the education. In fact, we could even flip that around when we pay you to learn to be a teacher. But there's also weaknesses in this model. The first of all is that many of these technologies don't exist yet, and the cost to develop these technologies is significant. It's not something that one institution or one teacher will be able to do, as it might have been in the Education 2.0 model. This will take investments of many hundreds of thousands or perhaps millions of dollars to create these highly sophisticated tools. It also requires that we have academic coaches who can mentor and work with those students, ideally in context of working on the job. And not every teacher has that capacity. It requires that we also skill up the mentors at the same time that we're skilling up the teachers who are coming in at the bottom end of that model. And it also is something that's brand new. We don't understand what all of those systems are. So that is an understanding of Education 3.0 in the context of future education, and I will return that back to my colleague Carlotta.
Thank you. You're sorry, I had problems with the microphone. Thank you very much for this presentation. I have, again, a lot of questions to continue, but we are short of time, so I'm going to leave them at the end of the session. Thank you very much, yours. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Stephanie Edwards and Dr. Franz. Both of them are mentors of ICEFIL, both of them with a great experience training teachers in vulnerable contexts. So please, Stephanie.
My name is Stephanie Edwards, and I'm from ICEFIL. Now, some 6 years ago, we were asked to teach teachers in Africa. A colleague of mine had heard about Vodafone's open classroom, where they provided students with tablets where they could learn. There was a great lack of materials in all schools in Africa. So we went along there, and before we did that, we'd actually designed an online program for them. And if you take a look at that map you see of Africa, you'll see a red dot, and that red dot actually is where Kakuma is. Before we go any further, I'd like to show you a very short film about Kakuma, about our first journey there some 6 years ago.
I love teaching because it's my passion. I love teaching because the way of learning.
I'm here for Kakuma, and I'm going to teach the teachers with teacher skills.
I am here to lead the team and also to do some of the trainings in curriculum building.
I think we're going to meet a lot of very motivated, very interested and very inspirational people.
One of the key issues for us is to lay the groundworks for future work in an online environment.
Education is one of the highest priority for refugees themselves. It's a mechanism in which they can get out of this, very difficult life as a refugee. Majority of our teachers are refugees with no training, so we will really, they really require to be trained.
We are all together. We need each other. We need compliments. Your student needs compliments. So in team teaching, we need each other. What I don't know, I can ask him or her. And it doesn't matter if you're a Kenyan or a Burundi or some people from the South Pole. I don't care. We need each other.
If you are an educated person, you can get what you want, and also you can interact with many people in the world. Education also is very important because when you go to school, you know what is good, you know what is bad. But when you did not go to school, you don't know what is good and what is bad.
Education transforms a human being. He would have been, or she would have been a different person, but when he goes to school and gets those tools of analysis, of understanding, of studying, of surfing the internet, of reading books, a person becomes completely different.
Oh, the morning lessons are okay because they give me how to manage my class, how to get the attention of the student, and then how to prepare my lesson plan and all those things. So it is very good for me.
We are today going to be training them on using the platform that we developed for them, and we are going to put material on there both relating to discipline content, but also teacher skills, which many of these refugee teachers, most of whom are not teachers at all, very much are in need of. There's nothing they want to do more than to learn. And what else can you want as a teacher?
You want that every student can go out of your lesson and they can say, I can do something I couldn't do yesterday. And can you imagine how motivating that is for students?
Education is key. It's key in the sense that it helps empower individuals. It helps them also to have the sense of normalcy in their life, and it also helps them to realize, the dignity of being human, despite the fact that they are in a refugee camp.
This morning we started with explaining and giving general info on the platform, on the Eureka's platform, and we walked through every single aspect of it. This afternoon we are making a course ourselves.
At the time that you guys will go back to Europe there, I'm not the same guy that who was there for the last 3 days. I'm now a very different guy, and I feel very empowered.
My plan for future is to continue learning and help people, young people, for the new generation.
You know, there are very many teachers watching you right now. What message can you tell them?
The condition for working here in CAM is not all that good, but I want to encourage them. I want to tell them they should keep strong. And I think what I'm doing now, right now in Kakuma here, I'm trying very hard to better my life so that tomorrow when I go back to Sudan, I'll be a better person.
As you could see in the film, our mission was to teach these students how to use an online platform. Now, if you take a look, this is the first page. This is a landing page of the platform that we created, and you can see the units that we created for them. We created units like how to learn in schools. This is basic teacher skills, the teacher as pedagogue, etc. We put a lot of content on it, which consisted of readings for them, of quizzes, of tasks, etc. However, one thing you could see from the film, and that was going to be our greatest challenge, and that was, sorry, I've made a mistake here. We made a platform in which we would encourage cognitive presence. So this means lots of information for them, social presence when we wanted them to work together as teams, and we created learning teams for them, and also the teaching presence when we were present as teachers. That meant that the students could constantly be in contact with us. However, the challenges that we faced, now you could see that from the film, was first of all connectivity. That we went there with great aspirations with this, with our learning platform, and you could see the students using very, very rudimentary iPads. These were given to them as a result of the from Vodafone. However, the biggest problem was that there is very, very little internet there. That we discovered that after 12 o'clock in the day, that there was absolutely no connectivity at all. Students were then provided with smartphones, which did help to a certain extent. The equipment, as you said, it was, as you can see, it was very, very rudimentary. So a lot of our lessons we ended up doing with pen and paper. And this was excellent for teaching them various teacher skills. However, it meant that our platform was not going to be used the way we wanted it. We had expected to be able to contact them through Skype, etc. But again, that got to be, everything like that got to be a problem. And also the fact that a lot of the younger students that we met, they were very, very computer adept, that they had their smartphones, they knew what Spotify was, they knew what all tools that we're used to using in the West, they knew what these were, but some of the older ones had absolutely no computer skills. So we spent a lot of time actually focusing on this. And to actually get in contact with our students, it was a bit of a problem. The reality we had was that we brought our students, you can see the big pile of them on the tables, that we brought these every time. And these are readers that we actually made a paper version of all of our content. We made a paper version of all the assignments, etc., that we had from them. So you can imagine the amount of excess baggage we had every time we were going there. You can also see on the edge of the table, there were some 5 very, very old MacBooks that were presented to us, that were given as presents to us, and we brought these every time. However, this only solved the problem to a certain extent. How we actually communicated online with our students, we used absolutely everything we could. We used social media, we used WhatsApp, and we used the cheaper version WeChat. And we're talking about 5 years ago. This is where we could actually have 4 or 5 students talking to us, and we could actually see them as well. However, this still was going to be a constant problem for us. And then luckily, we managed to get a partnership with Each Teach. You'll be hearing a lot more about Each Teach later on in the day. And we're very, very glad because this has made our content accessible. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, Franz. Thank you for this presentation. And yes, as you said, next we are going to talk about ICEFIL. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Joaquin Rodriguez, Director of the Department of Design, Innovation and Educational Technology at SEK Education Group, PhD in Cultural Anthropology, Head of Design, Innovation and Learning Technologies, 30 years researching and working in education, technology, and the impact of digital transformations. Author of 16 books devoted to the digital revolution. Please, Joaquin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carlota. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to present these projects, ICEFIL, and share it with all of you. Next one, please. ICEFIL, next one, please. ICEFIL was born out of the intention to contribute to the challenge of providing quality education to all those children in the world who need it. In order to contribute to this goal, our institution considered how it could collaborate in the training of the 69 million teachers that the United Nations says are needed to fully meet Goal 4. Next one, please. We joined forces with the UCJC Foundation and the department I represent, Innovation and Educational Technology, to develop a solution that we conceived by following a process of design thinking. Next one, please. Working first in the field, listening to the protagonists and potential users, and prototyping possible approaches that could satisfy a flexible, scalable, and quality training. There were many design principles that emerged during the process. People taking on the role of the teacher without a minimum of pedagogical training, lack of trained resources in the field, poor internet connectivity, but massive presence and use of mobile devices, etc. I can do no more than summarize some fundamental principles. Next one, please. At the end of this whole process, we decided that we had to develop an application through which any user could easily and independently access all the training content, could download and use it offline, could enjoy all the interactivity even without a connection, that the knowledge acquired could be projected onto real context, and that each student could enjoy the mentoring of a professional. Next one, please. This is basically ICEFIL, an open platform where other institutions, organizations, and universities can cooperate by adding content for teacher training with the intention of creating a truly international learning community, a simple, affordable, scalable, and open solution. Next one, please. Behind each of these micro courses, there is a consistent work of design of the learning sequences. Short courses as knowledge pills that start as an autonomous itinerary to end up becoming a real project mentored by a professional. All kinds of resources can be found in each microcourse: videos, infographics, audios, interactive activities, video microgames, images, writing content, reports, etc. Next one, please. We are aware that many of the people who would like to do these microcourses need to accredit their follow-up in order to obtain a stable job in the educational administration. For the current microcourses, basic pedagogical training, we generate specific budgets that we use that are used by our organization. We are working together with ICEFIL and Utrecht University to incorporate higher level courses endorsed by the Kenyan Ministry of Education so that they can be validated and used as appropriate. Next one, please. Within each teach, you can find self-created courses, adapted courses, and syndicated courses from other organizations, all with the intention of making it the largest platform for international teacher training. Next one, please. Some of the courses we have created ourselves are as follows: digital skills, pedagogical and classroom management, or emotional intelligence. Next one, please. Some of the ICEFIL and Utrecht University courses that we have edited and adapted are as follows, as you can see. And next one, please. I would like to mention that each course generates its own learning community so that anyone who has taken the course can participate in the discussion. Next one, please. We are very happy and excited to announce an imminent pilot program in Kenya, in the Kakuma refugee camp, and hope to be able to extend this solution soon to Somalia and Zambia. Next one, please. Finally, the next 9 slides, which I will quickly go through, are an example of the actual screenshots of the application. But remember, these contents, these courses, can be followed on any kind of device, be it a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, or a mobile phone. These screens offer the view that you will get when registering on a digital device. So please, you can, Enrique, can you please, the 9 slides, just showing the different contents. This one, please. Activities, you can see different kind of activities, different kinds of budgets and feedback. They are real examples. Micro video games. There's personal profiles and budgets. And so on. So I hope you have been interested in ICEFIL project, in the way we have thought, designed, and developed to help people in need of teacher training. And we hope you will join us in the initiative with your experience and content. Thank you very much on behalf of the SEK Education Institution and myself.
Thank you very much, Joaquin. It has been a pleasure to listen more about ICEFIL, and I hope in this short 5 minutes that we have, we could talk a little bit more about it. But here I have seen that we have some questions from the audience. So I'm going to launch them, okay? Any of our guests can answer them. First of all, this question, how is it possible to combine modern skill sets with traditional curriculum?
Hi, I would like to answer this question, if you don't mind.
Yes, please, Mr. Ihad, please.
I think that's a very good question, okay? And as I said in my presentation, there is a challenge here because national curriculums don't change, okay? And the way we went about this is that, we found out that in each country, there is this academic track and there is a vocational track. Well, in almost each country, okay? And the vocational tracks tend to be more flexible according to each country's educational system. So we approached this through introducing these new skill sets in the vocational track of the educational system. Okay, so, and of course, when we talk about skill sets, it's not just the traditional vocational program where you learn carpentry or to be an electrician or whatever. There are other skills related to ICT or presentation skills or communication skills. But again, this gap in the educational systems allowed us, along with, of course, our Finnish partners in Finland, who have an extremely remarkable skill sets curriculum as a part of their own vocational system. So this is what we practically did from our perspective. But the long-term solution, again, is to to make these national curriculums less rigid and therefore more open to new skill sets. Not like, there are very specific learning objectives that need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I have this question. This question is for Franz. Franz Krieger, please. I would like you to please to answer this, taking a global perspective and taking into account your experience in Kakuma and in general training teachers in vulnerable contexts. What are we doing better and worse in teacher training programs in vulnerable contexts nowadays?
Well, what we witnessed is, first of all, we went there with a lot of things in our heads, and the reality was quite different. So we had to adapt really quickly, and as Mr. Ibrahim just said, the curriculum is there, but you can also, of what we witnessed was a shift in the curriculum also in Kenya, from really traditional to more modern things. And then the other thing, as you saw in the presentation, was about the connectivity. And I think there's the bridge in each teach, and what Dr. Salzman was telling us, that there lies a lot of opportunities to be used and can be used in modern pedagogy or didactics. So yes, there will be shifts, but also there will be some traditional ups we have to take.
Thank you very much, Franz. And here I have another question from the audience. Teachers need to acquire skills to facilitate the students' ability to process information, much of it available. Any suggestion on how to bring about this change in the new teacher's role? Please feel free to answer, any of you.
If nobody wants to answer this, I will take that too. Yes, that's a big challenge, okay? Especially considering the fact that this is not a part of the teacher's formal training. And for them to be in a position to teach students, okay, they will have to know their scope, their domain, and their limitations, okay? So a teacher will have to understand the technology, the platform. So his role is more telling the student what to do in using the technology rather than actually explaining the specific topics that is being presented, okay? But from our own experience, that wasn't difficult for teachers. The second important component here is that for a teacher to be a facilitator, okay, he needs to know his students rather than knowing the subject itself, okay, and to know how each student react to the flow of knowledge, okay? So we encouraged this interaction between students and teachers. Teacher would know the background of each student, the weaknesses and strengths of each student, and that will make him do a better job as a facilitator. So the focus is not on the content or the material or the learning standards themselves, but rather on the knowledge of technology and the knowledge of students themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
What I wanted to add, Carlotta, to Mr. Ibrahim, what we witnessed in the 6 years we went in East Africa and South Africa, that it's not only the students, but it's the whole system of the school you have to train. So not only the teachers, but also the principals and everybody who is involved in the whole education of the students. And I think that's very important, not only focusing on teachers, but also on the whole system.
Thank you, Franz. Dr. Marangu, any thoughts on in terms of from Kenya?
Okay. I have here another question, please, to Mr. Joaquin. We know that collaboration is very important in this kind of initiatives that try to foster education in vulnerable contexts, and you talk about an open platform. Could you tell us how other institutions can participate in this project and how others could benefit from the free training?
Yes, of course. Our vocation is to build an open and collaborative platform, non-proprietary, in which we can incorporate new content in at least two ways, or three ways. Adapting previous content to the micro-learning sequences we described earlier, because part of the interest of this proposal is to reduce the complexity and time needed to follow a course. And another way will be to syndicate courses offered by other platforms that we can describe, characterize, tag, and link so that an interested user can discover it and access through a link to its content. In the future, moreover, we hope to fully realize the motto of our project, Each Teach. That means to open our platform so that anyone who can offer quality content or knowledge can do so freely using our tool.
Thank you, Joaquin. Sorry, and here, I'm sorry, but here I have another question. This question, I believe, let me check it, is for George. George, you mentioned negotiated work-based learning as a potential model for the future of education. Can such a solution truly scale up? George, are you there? No, I'm afraid that we lost George. Okay, so it's a personal question. If any of you please want to answer, if not, I can continue with some other. Okay, and I have another one. This is for Joaquin too. I'm sorry, but if you want to because it's very really wide. So Joaquin, you talk about learning sequences tailored to the needs of the students. Could you describe a bit more in depth how you have approached this?
Yes, I will try it, of course. We thought it was important to encourage autonomous, flexible, playful, and real learning. That's why we designed thematic microcourses that start with the activation of previous knowledge and continue throughout a set of blocks with interactive content, activities, automatic feedback, and playful proposals for implementation. But we were not satisfied with this more or less theoretical approach. So that at the end of this previous set of blocks, we encourage our students to develop a personal practical project assisted by a volunteer mentor that they will have to implement in the classroom in which they work. So we therefore combine autonomous learning, assisted learning, real projects, flexibility, and scalability. And all of that, I want to remind you, can be done most of the time offline.
Thank you very much, Joaquin. Unfortunately, we are out of time for more questions, but to say bye, maybe if any of you want to contribute with one phrase or proposal or something to summarize everything in some way, it's your turn. a word to finish the roundtable?
Well, thank you very much, Carlotta and UNESCO, for this opportunity to be there live and do the presentations, and also all my colleagues in 5 continents and wherever you are. I think we do a great job, and it's still evolving, and it has to be modern, and it has to be whatever you want. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for this motivating roundtable. Thank you for your time and for all this inspiration. And thank you to the audience for supporting this roundtable too. We invite you to visit our website to continue the conversation, ichteach.net, or if you are here in Barcelona, please visit us as stand number 3. Dr. Villar, the floor is yours.
Dear colleagues,
thank you very much for the different contributions today. I think in closing, I'd just like to say we have a big challenge ahead with to meet SDG 4 goals. And I think from what we've heard today, we believe in the future of technology and its use to advance teacher training programs. Now, let's all come together and see how we can scale this up, not only in Africa, but in other parts of the world, because I think this is a global need. And so please join us, please contact us if you think this program and some of the components you have seen today could be useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you all. See you in ichteach.net. Thanks.